Joe Biden, our current sitting president, fought very hard to have the right to give military members who had served honorably with zero discipline their entire career a dishonorable discharge. This video, this channel, and I am not endorsed or sponsored by the DoD in any way, shape, or form. The opinions herein are my own and mine only and do not represent the views of the Department of Defense. Let's go. Good morning. What's up, everybody? This is my very last day in the U.S. military as property of Joe Biden. It's been a long time coming. This has been about 8 years in the making. I am less than 24 hours away from being property of Andrew Kevlin once again. I'm very blessed to have been able to spend 8 years in the Air Force. The best thing I ever did, but also getting out is the best thing I ever did as well. I'm going to walk you through basic training, what the last 8 years have been like, how I came to the decision to get out of the military, the reasons why. But first I need to get some coffee, fix this hair. I'm just slightly out of regulations with my hair. I'm back, having a latte, Air Force style. Didn't quite fix the hair. We'll throw a hat on there, but there's still one elephant in the room that I haven't brought up yet, and that is the beard. How did the beard happen? Well, that's terminal leave for you. I did also get into a different program that allowed me to be on a TDY status for the last 5 months that did not require me to shave, which is quite nice. I actually got to go scuba diving for quite a bit, but we will dive into that, pun intended, another time. All right, so let's talk about the Air Force, the military. At the end, I'll give you 5 reasons why I got out. But first, where did it all start? So I joined late in life. I joined when I was 28. I had multiple different jobs and careers, paths of making money before that. I'd worked in hospitality, in fitness. I was in college for applied physiology. I was looking at what it was going to cost me getting my master's and ultimately decided that there was a better way to do it. I was actually more interested in the financial world, in investment, specifically real estate investments. And so I ultimately decided that I had a better plan of action. Ended up being exposed to a career path in the military that put you on path to learn a language, a foreign language, and go work with that. So after visiting the language school, I decided that I wanted to do this. So I went and talked to a recruiter, told them what I wanted to do. They said, go away. We don't do guaranteed jobs. You're going to sign, you're going to join, you're going to go to basic training, and you'll get whatever job that you get when you get there, which could have been anything from security forces to slicing pizzas to personnel finance or the job that I wanted. Now, obviously, looking back now and knowing what I know now, man, what a fool I would have been to not take an opportunity to go be finance or personnel. But ultimately, there would have been always the risk that I get put on parking duty for 4 to 6 years, and that was not a risk that I was willing to take. I did want to get trained for this job. There were particular reasons why I wanted to do it, and so I stuck to my guns. Recruiters eventually buckled and did what I know that they could do and gave me a guaranteed enlistment job, blah, blah, blah. So I went to basic training. Just to sum up my career, I mean, the Air Force has been awesome to me for the most part. And that's the big caveat. That's the big asterisk here, right? Is for the most part. Definitely set me up for some investment opportunities financially, which I'll dig into also in another video. But what I want to just cover today is just what my career was like going through it, and specifically why I'm getting out and why this video is titled the title that it is, Property of Joe Biden. What the hell is up with that, right? I went to basic training like everybody else does in San Antonio, sweated my ass off in the Texas heat, marching around and running every morning, which was great. And then immediately off to the language school. Spent a year at the language school getting my brain dismantled and restructured with a foreign language. And then I went to a different tech school for a few months and ultimately onto my duty station, which was where I was slated to be for the rest of my enlistment contract. Went to my job there and it was awesome. I had flex hours. I worked Monday through Friday, 6 to 2, time off for PT, all this. It was actually quite good. And I got to do some very rewarding work. I ended up meeting my wife and getting married. So we ended up looking at my enlistment end and saying, hey, is this where I want my Air Force career to end, or do I want to continue a little bit? I know I didn't want to continue where I was. Definitely wasn't in love with the location. The money was good. Deep down, I knew I could do better on the outside, but I also knew that I still had some investment potential, having passed on a few opportunities, which I'll dig into in another video as well. I'm promising a lot of videos here, so like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment below, and I'll keep you posted on the future videos. The truth is, there was still quite a few career opportunities that I wanted to do. I was enjoying my career, and there were some avenues in my career that I really would have loved to go down. So I wasn't quite ready to call it a day on my enlistment at that time. My initial enlistment contract was 6 years. So when I was just shy of 5 years, I extended for 21 months. I volunteered to go to Alaska. Got selected. It was within a week. I think 5 days I went ahead and got my selection for Alaska, signed my retainment, and that's it. Moved to Alaska. And that's where everything changed for me in the Air Force. Truth be told, had I stayed where I was or gone somewhere else, I could possibly still be in Alaska. Everything changed for me. A number of things happened in Alaska, which are essentially all the reasons why I'm getting out. Alaska was quite different. The job was not Monday through Friday, 6 to 2. It was shift work, days and nights, going back and forth, etc. Which, you talk to anybody that's on shift work, it's tough and it sucks. But there's a key difference between doing shift work when you're put on shift work for 3 to 6 months at a time for days, and then 3 to 6 months at a time for nights, and your system has at least some ability to adapt to one and adapt to the other. It's not great, it's not healthy, but if you got to do it, essentially we're talking about jobs that can't not be done, and you got nurses and doctors and health professionals, other people in various careers, police officers all around the world who do shift work. And the truth is, if I am a civilian nurse and I'm on shift work, hopefully I'm getting paid more for that, 1. And 2, they should be allowing me to stay on days or nights. That's a very, very key point here, that you look at people's physiology and you can see exactly how fast your physiology breaks down when you switch from nocturnal to normal 1, 2, 3, 4 times in a calendar year. Let's try 15 to 20. Let's see what that does to a person's health. And when it was just me, that was not a problem. We ended up having our first kid in Alaska. So I saw my boy as he's developing his infantile physiology. You have very, very serious developmental things that can happen physiologically with people if they're not on one schedule or another. I was never willing to separate from my kid, essentially cut him off from me, to not let my work schedule impact him, especially when I believed that my work schedule would just change, would be what it was supposed to be, what it was purported to be. It was purported to be a 2-month switch. Still too many times, but far fewer than 15 and 20 times a year. But ultimately, somebody that was over me in the military said that the problem is that I'm co-sleeping with my son. My infant, 11 months old, he's old enough to be taught that he can't just have whatever he wants when he wants, i.e., have dad next to him whenever he wants. And that, I thought, was an egregious overstep of military authority, to tell me how to raise my son, to tell me to put barriers up between my son and I, especially when there was the ability to be able to accomplish the mission 100% without doing that to people's schedules. So the truth is, a lot of people have smooth careers in the military. Some folks don't. A lot of folks don't, actually, which is fine, because life isn't always supposed to be smooth. But here's the thing. When I was in the military, when I was lower ranked than somebody, and I come to them with a very viable, positive, productive, constructive, logical, and very workable suggestion as to how we can do our job better while also taking better care of our people, and I'm told, no, can't do that because I don't want to rock the boat. Well, what that means is, in translation, is I don't have the courage, not I, the other person doesn't have the courage to pass this up the chain to try and accomplish something that's good for the people and great for the mission. And so it is conversations like that where it appalls me that, as I mentioned, the impact on myself and other people's families and children, that I am told the problem is, Sergeant Keevland, that you are co-sleeping with your son. That is such a garbage cop-out. That's an inexcusable cop-out for people to use that That just means nothing other than they don't have the courage to push good ideas up the chain of command, to do the right thing, because they're afraid someone else might not like it and it might reflect poorly on them, because the suggestion and the carrying out of that suggestion would end up resulting in more work in the short term for some people. And that more work is something that is there's a strong aversion to. So that's a tidbit about that bit. What I'm going to focus on is the top 3 reasons why I got out, and then a couple of distant stragglers, a couple distant number 4 and 5. So that's item number 3 is quality of life. You do have to take care of your people. And if you don't take care of your people, then your people are going to leave. Now, in the civilian world, if I'm a civilian nurse and I've got somebody yanking me around, every 23 days, back and forth, days and nights, I just quit my job. I just go look for a new job and I quit. Once I have a better job, I quit the one that I'm working. In the military, it's not that way. If you don't want to do what they tell you to do, then you get thrown in prison. And that is ultimately the way that you are subjected to whatever somebody just immediately above you wants to do, based on the fact that they wear more rank than you. They're able to do what they want to do. And you can't really do much about that as long as it's lawful. And it is lawful. In fact, it's lawful for me to die. Essentially, that's what I did. I signed a contract stating that I will die. I agreed to die for my country, and for my country is a very gray area. We're not always talking about storming the beaches of Normandy. We lose an egregious number of members every year who lose the battle with mental health and end up doing something that can never be undone, unfortunately. I think we all know what I'm talking about here. And that happens far too often, and it is horribly under-addressed by military leadership. Point number 2 are changes in compensation. So, the military is an all-volunteer force. We know that back in 100+ years ago, people joined the military and were paid a very, very small amount of money. Essentially, they were just fed, and sometimes barely fed. So technically, there is actually no pay for military members. It is simply compensation. So unfortunately, this number 2 point of mine is something that I really have no right to have an issue with. The military could decide to pay me $1 a month or $1 a year, and there's actually nothing legally that mandates that they actually pay me. The reason they pay is, so people actually can live and can perform the jobs and the function of the jobs, and so that people stay. Right, retention is a huge focus of the military. In today's world, especially in today's world in the last 24 months, but in today's world in general, in the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years, there's not a lot of folks that will do a job for free. Unless you're independently wealthy, that's just impossible. I don't know that anybody is willing to sacrifice their children's ability to eat and have clothing and housing in exchange for doing something. I don't care how much you love your country. I can't imagine 2 million active duty military members saying, to hell with my kids, to hell with my family, I'm going to go serve for $0 and let them figure it out back home. We would have independently wealthy people, or people that would be willing and able to come and work in exchange for food and housing. So the compensation in the military involves actual money pay, housing stipend, food stipend, and then it also involves all the things that actually aren't paid out in a dollar fashion. You've got health insurance, education benefits, and I have no gripe about the actual benefits that I've received, because I'm actually leaving the military with multiple college degrees, 2 associate's degrees, 2 bachelor's, and a master's degree while I'm in the military, and I have barely had to pay for anything. Some books and a little bit of tuition that was over the amount that they were willing to cover. But the issue that I do have with changes in compensation kind of began right away, actually. When I joined in 2016, for instance, you have your GI Bill. Now, I knew that I was going to get degrees when I joined the military, but I also knew that if I was diligent during my time in to get those degrees, which everybody should, you should always use tuition assistance, by the way. I came in very strategically. So my plan was, I'm going to join, and if I have dependents, at the time I was unmarried with no kids, if I have dependents along the way, I'm going to give my GI Bill to one of my kids. And at the time, the policy said, you join, you serve 36 months, you earn the GI Bill, and then you give it away whenever you want. You didn't spend it, give it away. Within a couple months of me joining the military, the policy changed that you had to serve 10 years in order to be able to give your GI Bill away. When it comes to pay, multiple things along the way would change. You know, I volunteered to go to Alaska knowing the pay that was going to be available there, because the cost of living in Alaska is exorbitantly higher than most places in the lower 48. It's quite exorbitant, and that cost of living hits you with the weather, with cars, with the cost of the food up there, with shipping costs of everything, housing, all of it hits you very, very hard. So there's a little bit extra compensation that was offered to help, right? A little bit to help offset that. About a year and a half into my 3 years in Alaska, the Air Force came along and said, we're slashing this slight additional allowance for Alaska. And they had their reasons for doing so, which I thought were garbage reasons. And ultimately, there's people like myself who volunteered to go there, and then midstream up there, they're going to go ahead and take away a massive, it was going to come out to be roughly a 15% pay cut based on that decision, which is something that I would never sign up for. If I knew that the rules were going to change midstream, I would not have signed up for that. I can't change the agreement that I signed. If I do, I go to jail. But the military can change those compensation policies. Reason number one is a word that I'm not going to say on this video, but it pertains to all the policies around the jab. The jab, the dreaded jab. I didn't take the jab, and I wasn't going to. When it rolled out, I did my research, I educated myself, thoroughly watched the data, the facts, looked at the tactics that were being used, and made an evaluation for myself based on what I had learned. And I chose not to do it, and I stuck by that decision. I made that decision in response to the mandate, the jab mandate that came out, and that happened to be about 4 months before my first son was born. And so it was definitely not an easy decision for me to accept that I could be punished and kicked out of the military for not taking the jab. And I knew that that was a possibility. And while I didn't want that to happen, I was willing to pursue a religious accommodation for me not to take that jab based on a sincerely held religious belief, which was ultimately denied. But through the whole process, I and my wife lived under the fear of me getting kicked out. That could happen very quickly. It was happening on short notice for a lot of people. A lot of folks were getting kicked out with 72 hours notice. My decision to not take that jab should have been my right to make a religious decision for myself and my own body.
My choice! My choice! My choice!
The decision to mandate that was not backed by science, one bit. In fact, it was backed by political ideology, financial motivation, and manipulation. So ultimately, I knew that I could be kicked out 24 hours before my son's born and not have time to get replacement health care and be stuck with a $40,000 bill for the birth of my son. I knew that. I knew that I also could end up completely without a salary. There's a variety of things that could have happened there that could have been purely catastrophic, and were catastrophic for many people. People were punished with a discharge that said under honorable conditions, but that is less than an honorable discharge, and that ultimately caused them to lose their education benefits, which they could apply to have reinstated later if they challenged and appealed. But ultimately, they lost their GI Bill and kicked out of the military. I'll tell you what our current president fought very hard for, which was for the right to give military members a dishonorable discharge simply for the fact of refusing that jab. Now, for those who are not familiar with military discharges, you can receive an honorable, a general, or a dishonorable. People that do really, really bad things in the military, felonies, disciplined, jailed, and kicked out. All of that is far better than a dishonorable discharge. But Joe Biden, our current sitting president, fought extremely hard to preserve the right to give military members who had served honorably with zero discipline their entire career and had zero disciplinary issues whatsoever a dishonorable discharge simply for the fact that they refused to take that jab. The impact of having a dishonorable discharge on your record is good luck ever getting a job. That will harm you and your family for life, essentially cutting out your ability to feed your family. That's something that was very, very well swept under the rug. So the other bill that the Biden-Harris administration fought against was a bill that the House wrote in requesting that military members who wanted to go to an established medical provider and pay out of their own pocket to have their blood drawn and tested for antibodies of that virus, to be tested for that specific virus antibodies. If their antibodies were at or above a threshold that was acceptable per the jab, as long as they had a certain level of antibodies in their system, based on that alone, they could not take the jab. Now, that makes perfect scientific sense. When you talk about an actual level of antibodies, the sole purpose of the jab was to cause the body to produce a certain level of antibodies. So if you already have antibodies in your system based on already having had the virus, then it makes most sense that if you already have a certain level of antibodies and you're willing to pay out of pocket to pay for that testing to be done on your own blood, and you can prove that to the military, that you should not have to take the jab. There's no reason to try and introduce antibodies when you already have the antibodies. That bill was actually successfully shut down. So we did not have that opportunity. We got to the end of it to find out that they ultimately just said, meh, forget about it. We don't really care about that anymore. And not only do we not care about that anymore, if you just got sick with the virus and just tested positive for the virus, still come to work. Oh, no, you don't need to distance at all. Still come to work in close proximity to everybody around you. There's no need. And this was what was done after tens of thousands of military members lost their livelihood, lost their GI Bill, and if the Biden-Harris administration had their way, would have received a dishonorable discharge. And it was after that that they rescinded the mandate and said, we don't even care about the virus at all. If you have it, come to work and be close to everybody else. We don't care. No need to even go home if you have it, which was shocking to me. And quite honestly, just a blatant disregard for people's health and wellness. I still don't think people should be at work while they're sick, but it was interesting. So that's the number one reason why I got out, because I will never put myself in a situation again where some old man sitting in some house thousands of miles away can have an opinion and make a decision that can take away my ability to feed and clothe and house my kids, potentially even for the rest of my life, which was nothing short of egregious abuse of authority.
I don't care if you think I'm Satan reincarnated.
Now to happier topics. Everyone wants to talk about beards in the military. SEAC, former SEAC, Colin Lopez, he wants to talk about beards in the military. This man, who was the most senior enlisted member of the entire U.S. military, said, if you want beards and skinny jeans, then go do it somewhere else. Well, I'm not wearing skinny jeans. I don't wear skinny jeans. I really don't like them. But I do like beards. And there's a lot of military members that have skin issues and hair growth issues. And some that just like growing beards. And there was a strong push against that. And I disagree with that a lot. This is my number 4 reason. I'll get to number 5 in a minute, but this is my number 4 reason. There's a strong push against that, has been for decades. It's a cultural thing, it's an opinion thing, and when these people will sit down and talk about it, Chief Bass and SEAC Colin Lopez, and they'll say, we're not here for fashion statements, we think it looks unprofessional to have a beard. Ultimately, no, that is a fashion statement. To mandate a shaved face because we like the appearance of that, that is a fashion statement. They use all the reasons with the gas mask. That was debunked. The gas mask seal up just fine with beards, especially with the fact that you have to keep it below 1/4 inch of bolt growth. There's no problem there. That was an excuse that was used for a very long time. And ultimately, now they just have to resort to the professionalism statement. Ultimately, they call it a fashion statement to have a beard. I call it a fashion statement to mandate shaved faces. And so we disagree. And they hold the power in the military, and so I said, great, but it is a reason to get out. And then, so 5th reason is CBD and hemp products. We weren't even allowed to use CBD products. And what's very interesting about that is CBD and hemp have a variety of medicinal benefits. Its wellness properties are quite established, but unfortunately, hemp remains a Schedule I federally illegal substance. So I actually have some lower back issues. I had an injury in tech school in the military, which resulted in a couple of bulging discs and some sciatica, etc. Right? So I went to the doctor multiple times for that. And ultimately through the years, I was not able to get any chiropractic care because TRICARE does not believe in chiropractic care. I was not able to get any acupuncture care because TRICARE does not believe in acupuncture. And obviously, I could not use any CBD or anything like that, any hemp product, because in America we think hemp is worse than cocaine and heroin and everything else in between. But what they did offer me was this. You ready? A weekly epidural of fentanyl and a prescription of Oxycontin. Now, I'd like to ask the very fair question. What is worse? Using hemp products, even just a CBD dropper, or utilizing a THC-containing product, a natural plant that grows from the ground, or fentanyl and oxy. Fentanyl and oxy have ruined and taken millions of lives. And they were willing to say, oh, you have some back pain? Phew, we got you. We're going to tap some fentanyl in there every week for the rest of your life and give you oxy to take twice a day. Now, I refuse both. I thought that was the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. I'm like, Doc, I came in here asking about chiropractic, acupuncture, and a CBD product. And they said fentanyl and oxy is the best we can do. And I'm like, whoa, that got out of hand fast. Why would we leap to that? Why would we leap to something that has such pervasive addictive qualities and has been proven to be, one, oxy being a very evilly designed substance, very evil substance, that actually in the nature of the interaction between oxy and your brain, you actually don't even, taking the same dose over time actually becomes ineffective, so you have to increase the dose. Chemically, it's designed this way to require an increased dose over time to receive the same effect. That is the best salesman right there in the design, the chemical molecular design of the drug. The best salesman for the drug itself is the nature of it requiring people who become hooked on it medically to then have to increase their dose over time. Absolutely wild to me that they would put that out there in response to me saying, can I get my back cracked in a couple of acupuncture needles and maybe a CBD dropper? And they're like, fentanyl, oxy. Come on. That's some garbage right there. There's a little bit of science and medical logic there that we should address. Again, I didn't get out for that. I got out because I'm never going to let somebody hold a syringe over my ability to feed, clothe, house my children. So I had to wait until I was out of the military to say these things. I do plan on articulating in another video all of the positive things about the military and the reasons that I joined. No longer Staff Sergeant Keevlin, just Andrew at this point with a beard and wild hair, living full-time in RV and designing my next move in life. So like the video if you liked it. Comment below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what an idiot I am for getting out and forfeiting my 20-year retirement check. I'd love to hear your thoughts. On this channel, I'll be posting a lot of socio-political topics, a lot of reactions to things going on in the news, to things about the military, and lots of things that I think need attention in our society today. Financial matters, governmental policies. Hit that subscribe button, like the video, drop a comment below, and see what I post next. Thanks for watching.